So now it's open for discussion. I think there are a lot of things that we can touch. Who wants to begin?
I will speak. You said at a certain point that you were looking for a scientific base, or that perhaps a scientific base for design would be possible. I don't know if I missed the thing that you said immediately before it.
Mm-hmm.
But how would you translate the scientific requirements of a research question, for example, to the requirements of design? How can it be scientific?
Well, as I found, it was specifically related to non-representational theory. And what they research is actually, they try to measure how effect, which is the interaction between, for example, a building and the user of the building, how is experienced by the building, to measure that in an empirical way. This is what they study. And I think if we place design methods in that theory and we can relate it to that concept of effect, as we are trying as designers to create some kind of interaction, I think that is the way that we can place it in the scientific
So they study the relationship between the user and, sorry.
Yeah, non-representational theory is, they basically say that there is a material world, an immaterial world, and there is something in between. And that between different actors you have an interaction, and that's what they call effect. And this effect they are trying to describe by another concept, which is the diagram, and that describes the interaction, kind of patterns that are present in everywhere, that can at any time generate this kind of effect. But you cannot in advance explain where the effect is going to happen. It's just that they try to describe the possibilities of where effect is going to happen. This diagram is not only visible, but there are also invisible aspects of it, because this effect can be generated also from things that we cannot see at the moment. So it's very unpredictable. But this theory, they actually try to explain the kind of experience which I felt was the same as what we are trying to do when you are designing. You try to make a sort of interaction with your user. You try to make him feel comfortable. For example, we use trees to put on a square to make it more accessible, to not make it such a big empty space. I think that feeling, that is what they are trying to describe with effect. And I think in that way it would be interesting to see if we can link that to design theory to actually make it a practical, more scientific based explanation. Because I felt when I was studying here, even when you talk to other faculties, it's very hard to explain what you are actually doing as a designer. And I think this is it's still very vague, because the whole theory in human geography is also very vague. Not all the researchers agree with it. But I think it's at least an attempt to make that kind of vague experience more concrete. And in that way we could use it.
So to make it subjective or objective?
I think it makes it more objective, but I have to say that my teacher, who I wrote the article for, he allowed me, for example, to use my personal experience as a designer into the article, because he said you can observe how you, like I was describing the different phases of conceptual design. He said you can use your own experience for that. So it is, they do allow a little bit more of your personal experiences in it, but they try to use it to make your article more objective, I guess, of the profession. But I do have to say that this concept was very difficult. One of the most difficult ones that I've encountered still since I started. But I think it's very interesting for us as designers. So is that, yeah.
But in our faculty, we also are trying to combine research and design. Because we are always talking about research by design, design by research. So we have our researchers, but we also are trying to guide the students using the research that we
Yeah, I just, as I explained with the picture, I think it's very difficult that when you're designing, as I explained, you try to put things together, and to understand the theories, you have to take a more objective look at how space works, and those things together at the same time, I found very hard to because I did it the other way around. I tried to explain my design project for my master thesis in a research way, to write a research proposal actually about it. And I found it very difficult to translate from that idea of connecting things to taking them apart.
Yeah, I think this is the most difficult part.
Yeah.
Also, with the other students, when they try to support their design with theories, this part is quite difficult. But I think this is also the part we are working on.
Yeah.
In Utrecht, it seems that there are more researchers
Yeah.
designers there.
Yeah.
So probably that's a problem. They don't have a case really work.
Yeah, they stay more abstract, that is true. And as actually the theories that I got the first half year are all what they consider grand theories. So they are the more abstract theories on the whole, based on the whole society. So actually there are also other theories that are more specific to one topic. And I think if you try to apply those grand theories to the design, the direct translation is very difficult. You really have to understand the research very well. And we were also warned that the classes that we have, you understand a little bit of theory, but to actually teach in it or to use it in design, you need to know a lot more about it. Especially non-representation theory was very difficult.
Yeah. Very interesting, this kind of bridging between the research and design. One of the schemes when you were talking about the body of knowledge and research trying to put something in and professionals trying to put something out, you briefly said something about that in Utrecht at the moment. It's really a discussion about how to communicate to professionals. I'm very interested in that. Could you tell a bit about how they see and how they approach that problem? How they see that, how do they...
Yeah, the problem is we got a class on applied research, and it was actually about how to translate policy. So they are more focused on policy than designers, I have to say. I think the issue is that the policymakers are providing the money for the research, but at the same time, the researchers need to be objective. And a lot of times, the policymakers want to have the results that they intend for their money. So they don't, and they have a lot of constructions that they use in order to ensure that they can still do objective research while they're getting paid by making multiple actors integrate into the research, and they have some check systems. I think that is one of the discussions where they are directly related to it when they get an assignment from the professional side. And the other side is how to communicate in your article, your scientific article, and they are trying to figure out how they can do that. And the discussion was whether you have to focus on as a researcher, is your main task to contribute to the body of knowledge or to communicate to policy making? And I think the one side of the discussion is that as researcher you contribute to body of knowledge on the long term, which is why they explain you're not going to change the world, you just contribute, and the research is used from the professional, like in interaction by the professional world. But whether it's used now or in 10 years, you don't know. And I think when you communicate to the policymakers, you have the objective to actually make them use your research right away. And I think the discussion is whether the first or the second approach is what we should, as a researcher, you should actually aim. Personally, I think we should focus on contributing to the knowledge, because the policymakers, they change all the time, and their opinion changes and the need for their knowledge changes. So if you want to make a contribution, it's better to find a hole or a gap in the whole body of knowledge than to focus on what's specifically needed. But on the other hand, you look now at the trends like the climate change and all that, you do focus research on that because it's just where the grants are available. So I think that is a little bit the interaction.
Is this at the moment in Utrecht, is it something of, I don't know if you have a good view of that completely, but is it something of an add-on for kind of all the researchers, or is at the moment the application of knowledge really an independent group of people that are dealing with that as a research subject in itself in Utrecht?